Hey everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to the Deployed from Detroit School of Leadership and Madness. A bit chipper for the title, huh? Why do I want to kill myself? Well, don't worry, I don't want to kill myself. But I've been in that spot before, and I've also done some cursory research into it. Like, I'm not an academic, I ain't no PhD, but this is my personal experience, and I have a ton of it, so that is the benefit there. So the immediate question here is, why did I put the title there? Because I've searched that into YouTube myself, seeing if anybody had their own opinion. So let's see if this helps there. In the immediate case, if you are implement in hand and you think this is the way you're going, let's do some quick intervention by, let me show you here. This is the Veterans Crisis Line, but if you're not a veteran, there's also the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and you'll realize it's the same number. So either way, you're calling, you're getting some help here. 1-800 273 8255. Veterans press 1, and those people are, they have a special setup where they can get you hooked up to a VA provider, and that's why they have their special line. But the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is there for everybody. If we look on their site, let me figure out where my mouse is. I have way too many screens. They have, in Spanish, they have deaf and hard of hearing options. They have chat options. I'll bet you they have text options. You can web chat here. There's a ton of options. So if you don't feel like making a phone call, or if you're in a place where you don't want to be heard saying these things, if you're in real close quarters and all of a sudden these thoughts are creeping up, maybe you'd like to do this quietly, that can be done as well. If we swing over, oh, where's my mouse again? There she is. Here we go. Swing over to the Veterans Crisis Line, and we've got the same kind of situation. You can call them up. You can chat right online. It's an old school kind of AOL Instant Messenger kind of chat. If you text this number, just kind of chat, hey, or whatever, they'll respond back to you, and it's a live person. You'll be talking to a human being, and they'll do their best to make sure you get through the evening. Also, you have support for deaf and hard of hearing again. All of these things are confidential. No one's going to be calling anybody. You don't allow them to call. For the vets, they have the benefit of being able to contact people within your healthcare system. For the civilian side, I haven't used the service, but I'm guessing they have some tools available to you. So utilize these if you're not feeling great this evening and the immediate. Now, if you think you can get through it without, intervention, if it's just kind of a nagging thought and you got time to just hang out and talk about it, let's just hang out and talk about it. Let's hang about. Geez, oh Pete's. Oh no, my stream's current bitrate is something, something, something. Well, let's see what happens anyway. So if you got time to hang out, let's hang out and talk about why you might want to kill yourself. And there is, believe it or not, some pretty rational reasons as to why. Far beyond the, oh, I got fired, oh, she dumped me, oh, he dumped me, oh, I'm out of money, I'm out, like, whatever the thing is that is, whatever the flavor of the coffee is, it's still the same cup that we're dealing with here. And it usually comes in 5 kind of blends. I'm going to not use that metaphor anymore. But so what I'm talking about here is, and I've mentioned this in past videos when we talked about why school shootings happen. And I'm a firm believer in this fella named Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. So I'll show you on the big one here. This was first sort of put forth most coherently to the public in A Theory of Human Motivation by Abraham Maslow in 1943. The military's been a big fan of informing its troops of this thing just because it's real. It's when you see this in action, it is a little bit mind blowing. And from the mental health perspective, this is crucial to understanding why it is you may be doing what you're up to. So let's switch screens here. Pardon me, the cough sucks. I know. So at the base, you have the physiological needs. And so now, what Maslow's hierarchy is trying to accomplish in general is ask, what would cause a human being to do a certain thing? Why would you do anything? And Maslow kind of figured out that there's really only 5 reasons to do just about anything, which is a little bit scary, a little bit somewhat disappointing if you're thinking of like grandness, but like there is beauty in how simple it is sometimes. And for us lunatics, for us mental health patients, I apologize if you don't like lunatic, but I'm pretty loose with my vocabulary, and that's just part of my malady. But for those of us who are mentally ill or not doing so hot, the fact that there's just 5 of these makes it kind of entry level, makes it something that we can rather quickly start to use to understand why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And a big thing that I've discovered it, and something that I kind of teach, is that the more you understand about what's hurting you, the less powerful it is, the less it actually hurts. And for mental health, it gives you the benefit of sometimes just outright ignoring it. And suicide is one of those things that you can develop the ability to just ignore. In my own experience as somebody with PTSD, where it's just a thing you kind of always have, I do kind of have a theory that like suicide is a persistent thing once it's in there. But I'll explain it as we go. But don't worry, this is something that you can handle. And look, it's color coded. We got this, folks. We can handle this. So let's slide on over to physiological. This is your body's motivations for things. This is why when you're hungry, you turn into a monster, because all the priorities have shifted in your body to putting food into your tummy. And whether or not you know this, human beings grow, well, that's going to be a secret, separate episode. But your stomach has its own separate nervous system, which is kind of bananas, and it can put the brakes on your civility if it thinks that things are at risk. And then so can other sort of more primal components of your body. But a physiological need to kill oneself is likely because you're in the process of being killed, and it's better to just get it over with now. Now, in the mental health aspect of this, you're not going to have this as much. Or, I mean, unless you're in a very sort of enhanced, aggravated, expressed state. Something, I don't know. I don't have schizophrenia, and those guys are so beautiful to talk to, but sort of difficult to decipher at times, what they're going through. But this is mostly like, if you've seen Fury, this is the lieutenant who's on fire in the tank, and he just jumps out of the tank and immediately shoots himself because his options appear limited at that point. And so in this case, where you are right now, especially if you had time to search on YouTube for this, this isn't you just yet. Okay? So let's move on to the next bit here. Safety. The cabin is filling with water is an example I put in here. Holy smokes, the ship is going down. The environment is so dangerous, it's time to check out. So this is quite comparable to physiological, where you've been wounded so severely that you just decide to take extra morphine and check out. That's something, while thought out, something a relative of mine has done. And they sort of, and that was more of a physiological, but it was so well thought out that it's kind of hard to put on that scale. But a safety thing is where your environment is so dangerous that this is where a POW, prison camp kind of person, uh, but this could also be someone who is now indoors with the rest of their crew, and somebody is a tyrant, somebody is violent, somebody is causing them to know that when they wake up in the morning, it's still going to suck, and it's still going to suck to a degree that like is immeasurable, is something you just can't endure anymore. And so when you perceive that you can no longer endure the environment, and that the environment is going to, like, your lasting in that environment is going to be longer than your ability to last. So, you've only got 100 hours of charge, but this is a 120-hour stretch, then this is where safety sort of suicides come in. And so you might see this with domestic violence kind of thoughts. And so if you have a shitty relative or roommate right now and you've been thinking about it, it could be because this is being triggered. And as we'll go through, we can sort of recognize the fact that these are ancient triggers that were put in us way before we were humans. These are things like way down the evolutionary line. These are ancient triggers. And so we can ignore them. We can thank them for their service and go, neat idea, bro. What the fuck? And move on. And that becomes the better internal argument with these voices as they come along. But this is, the safety needs is the environment is so dangerous that it cannot sustain life. And so, adios. Social is an interesting one. And social may come again. Social, in the way Maslow kind of puts it, is like group esteem and also love and interpersonal sort of connections and things like that. But as individual mammals, we don't do great against the weather. I come from a lot of northern people, and the only reason we survived is because I didn't come from a northern person. Because that fucker's dead. It is very difficult to be a lone human being. And so, again, just like that safety perception where the environment cannot sustain your life, if you don't have access to the things society provides, and so you can't go to churches because maybe people will chastise you, or you can't go out in public because people will chastise you, or they will take away your ability to get a job or to quit a job. In the case of slavery, they're like, no, you're not checking out, bud. That is a gross oversimplification, I understand. But so the social sense of suicide, this is where you see teen suicide, unfortunately, a lot, is their misunderstanding that they don't have to fit into the clique that they're in right now. And that may be something somebody's encountering in this case. Maybe you are with your family and you've done some black sheep bullshit, and now, they're not being, they're making it apparent that you're not a member of the family. Or you are locked in with a bunch of strangers and you're doing a kind of like, is a Real World still on? Is that a thing? It's fucked up that shows my age. That, goodness gracious. You could be in a situation where there's a pecking order that has to be established, and sometimes these can be so stressful. If you look at like a Soviet pecking order, I just watched The Death of Stalin yesterday, and I totally want to do a movie night on it because it's hilarious and frighteningly accurate. But in that kind of social situation, or in places where the social hierarchy deems suicide as like an okay option for those who don't fit in, anymore, which is an unfortunate component of some of the more arcane aspects of like Japanese society, where you have sort of like honorable suicides. You're like, well, I lost the company $10,000. I probably ought to audio. You're like, no, dude, no, you just make 10,000 more, bro. What the fuck? But sometimes society has it in it, because we all kind of know this is in there. This is a thing that is in all of us, and so because so many societies are not great at expressing their emotions or understanding their emotions or really caring about them generally. I mean, for the most part, we've been so busy being chased by other creatures that we haven't had time to like take our breath and go, okay, now what the hell's going on here? And that's why we're only seeing, texts like this in the past few thousand years. Starting in the Greek period, 5,000 something years ago, through, this is 1943, where we're just now getting to like, oh, okay. So this is, let me get back to the thread at hand here, okay? So these are the most likely that if you're going to see one during this time period, the ones I'm most afraid of would be the safety ones, where someone has a partner or parent or guardian or somebody who is just not cutting it, let's say, to be gentle. But that is a concern of mine. Additionally, you have these social ones where, and here's the other part too, because we're all alone right now, not all alone, I'm alone, and so it feels kind of encompassing in a way. But I'm kind of speaking to a lot of people in this sense too, I guess, who are likely feeling alone, isolated, singled out. I don't know. You get what I'm saying, folks. But that isolation aspect too can also lead to it, because if you have sort of a negative cognition in your head, some kind of thought that's not doing you any good, that says like, well, it's better off that you're by yourself, because if you were with everybody, they wouldn't give a shit anyway, or I haven't gotten a lot of phone calls, but then it's 2020, I realized, and people don't use their fucking phones to call people anymore. So get over it, bud. Like, there's things you can always combat those thoughts, and isolation has, because one of the reasons isolation is a reason to cause suicide. So if somebody believes that they're not going to ever be able to participate in society, is because isolation causes you to go nutty. And the reason it does that is because you don't have anyone to bounce your ideas off of. And so you don't have anyone to check you on your bullshit. And as much as we need love and someone to say, you are such a great person, you also need someone to say, yeah, no, the FBI is not in that car across the street, dude. Why the fuck would they? No. Like, sometimes paranoid people can develop ladders of thought that, I had a friend who would see a thing that struck him as odd, and before you knew it, by the end of the day, there was an entire sort of lattice work developed as to how that was put there and why it was nefarious, and you're like, holy shit. But that was a social item too. Paranoia is often a social bit, because somebody thinks either the society is not good enough for them or that the society wouldn't want them. It's kind of a back and forth idea. So let's move on to esteem. This is where vain people might kill themselves, or narcissists, or people with bipolar in a sort of heavy but maybe aggressive manic state, kind of like, fuck you, show the world, wah, and then, but that's a very intense state of that. Most bipolar folks don't go that fucking off the rails. They'll have an episode or two for sure, but like, it's not a persistent behavior. A lot of times though, it's the individual in this phase of your development and your motivation. It's your ability, so your body is safe, your environment is safe, you're part of a team now, you're part of a family, and now you're trying to figure out who you are in that family, and you're sort of developing your self-esteem as a member of that tribe, as a member of that species, as a member of whatever the hell it requires for you to like check the social box, moves you on to the esteem box. And so as an esteem suicide is one of the, now this is where you might get socially pressured in those sort of, like we were talking in the Japanese society in World War II, people were pressured into suicide. People who weren't into this sort of more aggressive way of doing things, and they were forced to, because like either you do it or we do it, and they're like, well, all right. Now the people who actually believe these sort of processes and have these honor suicides, it's an esteem thing because they think their personal, honor or whatever kind of bullshit they're coming up with. But it is a juvenile kind of thing too, because esteem's usually it can be developed by the time you're in your teens. So, sorry, buds. But it's when an individual feels powerless. They feel like they have some power that they're supposed to wield, and that they're expected to wield. And if they don't wield that power, maybe they'll lose their position in in the society. They may get banished, or they may lose some kind of like, whatever standing they think they have. And so this is their Hail Mary. This is their A-bomb. This is when they feel powerless, they know that this is at a minimum powerful. It's non-productive, but it's powerful. And so these are where, we talk like vain, narcissistic, but then also people who have been pushed too far by too many people or have perceived it that way. People who get pushed around by societies and organizations. This is where some like suicide by cop types, like the more publicly violent suicides come into play, are the esteem ones. It's a whole crazy thing, and how dare I even try to fucking explain this stuff, but I'm just trying to help. Okay, so let's move along here. How dare I? Self-actualization. So self-actualization is beyond. This is when you understand who you are as a person. You say, this is, I am so and so, and it means this, and it feels this way, and whatever, and it gives you the freedom to use your life a little bit more. I don't know, with risk, and this is where. It's better than me. My death will save someone's life. It'll alleviate suffering. It will. This is where the Medal of Honor, a lot of Medal of Honor deaths are, in all reality, is sort of self-actualized suicide. The person knows what's going to happen to them, or has a good idea, doesn't have a positive end for them. But they know that it's better off that they do this, than not do this. In mental health side of things, these kind of, like, this would be more of a delusional type of thought. If it's out of sorts, like if you need to jump in front of a bus to save somebody, then that's your decision to make. But if you're sitting at home, then so you're not at jump in front of a bus. So we're good there. Maybe your house is on fire and you want to go in and rescue people. That is essentially, a self-actualized form of death, where you understand the risk fully, and you take it on because you understand that, we're going to be -1 in this column, but +2 in this column if I'm successful. Blah, blah, blah. So if you're at risk, what's happening right now, very likely, is that your environment is not great. Your social setting, you feel like you're alone, isolated, being banished, at risk of being banished, might as well be banished. Or you're a bit of a shit and you're trying to show somebody, and, she broke up with me, so I'll show her. Yeah, that really shows her. Fucking idiot. Sorry, but they need that talk. Kindness isn't always pleasant. But here's where this is where we sit tonight. If you're watching this tonight and you're saying, "Holy moly, I'm thinking about it," it's because of these. Now let me go back to beep 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 beep. Oh, full color. Da da da. Let me adjust the shot, folks. So, how does mental health play into this? Now, when you have a normal situation, we talked about the physiological. Holy smokes, I'm on fire. Pew. Holy smokes, my boat's on fire. Pew. That's safety. Still, you don't have to do it. Social, holy smokes, the village is going to set me on fire. Pew. And then esteem is like, I'm going out in a blaze of glory kind of thing. And then self-actualization, we talked about there. So anyway, where you are, safety. So if tonight you're not feeling good, and now here's where we can start to intervene. So we know when this thought is going to be put into place is when something says these things are at risk. And so, like I was saying, very likely either you think your environment is too risky, and so that's a perpetual sort of thought there. Either you think your social setting is too risky, or you think, I don't know, something about yourself needs to be demonstrated. That safety one, you can check that. That's going to be likely anxiety more than depression. Anxiety is all your nerves firing, and anxiety usually says the world is the problem. Whereas if we move into social and esteem, that's more likely going to be a depression scenario, where depression says, I'm the problem. Anxiety is an ancient trigger where, you were just chilling, you were having a great time, and then something happened to your body. Could be a traumatic experience, either encountered, witnessed, whatever. But something led your body to say, you're not in charge of the senses anymore. We get to know everything now. And so you perceive information a little bit brighter, and so you're always kind of mostly because the music's always just a little bit louder for you. And so if your environment is safe, but you're nagging sort of like, oh, I got to get out of here. It's not safe. The walls, like claustrophobia, fear, those kind of things. That's a safety kind of thing. Because who gives a shit that the walls are 4 feet apart? They're still going to be 4 feet apart 20 minutes from now. Like, they're not getting closer. Like, and these are the things you have to start to kick yourself out of, So recognize if you're in this safety mode, if you're an anxious type of person and, you're not being beaten to death every night, and it doesn't have to be beaten to death. Like, it could be somebody, like, every night just going, hey, I'm going to kill you tomorrow. Like, that's enough where you're like, fuck this, I'm out. That's torture. That's insane. Like, so that could be a real reason to perceive this. But if you are just home alone, you're pretty much safe as can be. And so now you're recognizing, oh, this is just a bullshit cognition. I'm overreading some kind of senses. Maybe it's too windy. Maybe I'll put on a sweater and a blanket and I'll feel a little bit better. And, I just need to, whatever your trick is for dealing with anxiety. But that could be where this sort of safety hitch is coming from. Social side is more of a depressive thought. Depression is an ancient tactic as well. that you see in most pack animals. You don't see it in. Well, I don't know of too many successful solo species, like other than like asexual sort of whatever. Like everybody has to get together at some point, and so it's programmed in there for a long time that, and trauma usually kicks it in, either witness, experience, whatever. But like something tells the body that like, oh, we're done with this, and you kind of just check out. And depression is, why aren't you grooming? Why aren't you waking up on time? Why aren't you as motivated? Why aren't you, what are these things? It's because it's trying to separate your genes from the rest of it's trying to make you unfuckable. I'm sorry, but that's depression's goal. And depression, if it's severe enough, can make you kill yourself because it's like, all right, we just need to get this thing out of here completely. Reason being is because most species don't have brains that think the way ours do. And so they can't intellectualize the idea of whether or not it's safe for them to procreate, be around others, any of that nonsense. So they just get a general purpose flare to piss off, and then you'll see a lone deer just by themselves, and then they just go die alone. Or, you'll see cats go out. You'll see a lot of animals kind of like when it's their time, they just peace out and you never see them again. Humans have this instinct in them as well, and this is an aspect of depression. And again, you can say thank you very much, I appreciate it. Who the fuck is this guy? Okay, and move on. You can understand that this is just ancient. Like this worked when I was a goldfish once. Cool, thanks, bro. I don't. What part of the DNA is this one from? Who knows? It's in the back though, and we can we can talk our way out. We can come up with situation. We can come up with better solutions. Is where it's at. And then the esteem one, maybe, and this is where love seems to. Well, here's an interesting idea. Essentially, where the fears come in these levels is, so let's say you're at the green level here I don't know where my arrows are anymore, but so let's say you're at the esteem level, and then an esteem suicide might be because somebody broke up with them, so they lost love, and so somebody is sort of progressing, and then the tier underneath them gets kicked out, they panic, and then, hey, remember when we were goldfish? And then they're gone. It's ridiculous that it's that simple. And it's kind of painful that, like, I know people have killed themselves. I know plenty of people who... I'd be an asshole to say I could talk them out of it. But I bet you they could benefit from having heard that, like, yeah, that voice in your head is just an old system that you can ignore willfully and gladly and do so gleefully. It's an odd thing. As somebody who's been in that boat, I remember it feeling pleasant, the idea. It felt at times like it would be a relief of some sort, which, I mean, chemically there would be no real relief. You would just move from a state of feeling shitty to a state of non-feeling, which is not the same as relief. That's just non-existence. So it ain't the same. It feels, or it sits around like a good idea. Like if you have the devil and the angel conversation, sometimes the angel says it, and you're like, wait, why? Why'd you say it, bud? He's like, well, sometimes it's a thing. It's a very odd sort of ancient mechanism we have in us, but it's something we can very definitely fight. And I know that for sure, if you are in it right now and you're, holy moly, this is too much for me, call those numbers. Let me pop that screen up again here real quick. So here is the lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. That's suicidepreventionlifeline.org if you're on the internet, which you are, I'm guessing. And the Veterans Crisis Line is the same number, but you're going to press 1, and that is veteranscrisisline.net. So if you're crying and you're like, oh shit, I can't do it anymore, if you're at that kind of stage, give these people a call, talk to them, chew their ear off until you can get through. And they will sit there and listen to you all the livelong day. Because, one, that's their job. But two, they genuinely care. These are some genuine people. I've called these people... If they had a record of it, which I'm sure they do somewhere, but like, I don't know. I'll have to ask them. But I'm pretty sure it's at over 20 times. I had a really, really rough patch, and these people were perfect. Sometimes it was just like, oh shit, I'm going to, you're in the moment, you're crying, you can't think, and they'll walk you through the blubbering of like, when you can't speak, and then all the way up until you can speak, and then all the way up until you're like, I think I'm good, I'm going to go to bed, and then I'll call my doctor tomorrow, or whatever, plan you guys come up with. But like, they'll be there the whole time. They're not going to hang up. If you get disconnected, it's because something happened and you got disconnected. So call them back or do whatever. Or, if you like this person, write down their name or their number, or, they all have like a reference number. But nobody's hanging up on you. So use this resource. If you are in a place where you're just past it, around it, you're not in the danger zone, but you're kind of in, you're dancing, we'll call it. You're dancing in the territory. This is something to consider. And so if you're dealing with suicidal ideation, which is the fancy talk for thinking about suicide, it's going to come from these. And so at a real basic minimum, go check out this book, or go check out a book about this book, or whatever, however you want to best ingest this. But understand ultimately that it's not you who wants to kill you. You don't want to kill yourself. Why do I want to kill myself? Why do I want to kill myself? Why do I hang myself or take pills or like what the... That's not 100% what's happening, but unfortunately we don't have a great way of articulating it. Is that you are enduring so much suffering, either environmentally, internally, or sort of cognitively, that this flag has been flown. And so it's been thrown into the options list. Because when you don't feel in control of a situation, you'll get a lot of sort of ancient options. Like, oh, I could just punch this guy. That's an ancient option. That's in there. It's trained. Even, biting, scratching, sort of primal. You'll see, if you ever watch nerds fight, it's like watching chimpanzees fight sometimes. It's fucking fascinating. If you watch untrained human beings fight, and then you watch like untrained and not even sort of like socialized into the idea of how to use their body in that way. They use their bodies the way monkeys do. They do the like two-hand and like it's ridiculous. This shit's in there. And so it's part of... It's like solitaire on your computer. That's what suicide is. And you don't have to play it. Okay? It's just preloaded into the system. And every once in a while, it'll kind of open itself up if certain things happen, if certain triggers are perceived. And so that's really all that's happening when you want to kill yourself, when you persistently thinking about killing yourself. If you have bipolar disorder and you're in a deep depression. I'm never escaping this. Well, that's bullshit because you're bipolar. So you know you're for sure going to become a lunatic in a little bit. So, like, hang on, bud. It's a roller coaster. You know that. Check in. So much of what's going to happen when you want to kill yourself is going to be some kind of trigger. But it's triggering an option that you can freely and readily ignore. You can say, thanks for the option, bud. And just like, you're the captain of your own little starship in your mind. You're in charge if you want to be. And so rather than letting that idiot run the conference table, you put them to the side and say, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Sit down. All right, who else has some options? And have that discussion with yourself again and try to find better voices once you can shut that one up. Because there are better ones in there. And they may not articulate themselves as individual voices. Likely if they do, you're schizophrenic or something. But they are these impulses, drives, motivations, the sort of inarticulable, the things we don't have good words for that happen internally. But that sort of push us in the directions we go. And so I still get suicidal thoughts. I was sitting on the couch today and I was like, it'd be neat if I put my hand in the chop saw and just cut that thing off and fucking bled to death. I don't know why I thought that. It was just in and out and it's like, what the ho? And I have weird horror scene thoughts like that all the time. And they could be like that ghastly, or it could be just like da 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 da. Or sometimes it's a more persistent thing of it could just be an afternoon of like, you could just go, put rocks in your shoes and fucking go for a swim, bud, which doesn't work. But like, you develop, unfortunately for me, it seems to be persistent, and it seems to be persistent for a lot. Like if you look at Bourdain, who was sort of, he didn't spend a lot of time in mental health, but like when he did, he got into it. Or you look at like Robin Williams, who was getting appropriate mental health, treatment or that. They relapsed, and it got bad enough that they fucking died. And it is like, it's something I sort of worry about. But then, if you know what's coming, you sort of prepare for it. And this is how I prepare for it, by understanding why it would still come. When I made that resolution that, like, you know what, I'm not going to kill myself. And I finally felt like I was over it. But then I looked at these people, past and present, who were in that same state and who had said the same shit and then still ended up killing themselves. And like, well, what happened to those people? So I had to understand why. Why do we want to kill ourselves? Well, it turns out because it used to be handy when we were fucking shrews 8 billion years ago or something. When we were itty-bitty tiny mice that you could fit on the size of your thumb, it was handy as hell to have one of them just peel off because, honestly, we don't need that fella around anymore. And that's just an ancient thing that we haven't bred that out for some reason. We've romanticized it in some ways, or, I mean, the other thing, too, is that it's so insultingly easy to manage once you understand what you have to manage. I say insulting because, like, any, like, major epiphany I've had about mental health has been pretty embarrassing. And it's mostly like a kick in the ego's teeth where, I thought I was smarter than that. Or where the solution, but it's kind of like when you solve any kind of puzzle or a maze, where you're like, well, of course this is the answer. And then none of your struggle before that makes any sense. Because you're like, well, of course this is the path. And you're just sitting there going, and then why did it take me 10 years to get through this fucking maze? I don't know. That's just my experience so far with it. I hope I've been helpful to someone. I hope this becomes helpful to someone. I think thus far I am the only concurrent viewer, which that's fine. It's Sunday and it's in the middle of the night, and who knows. If this is helpful to you, I'm glad. But I'll be honest with you. I can only say so much. I can only show you so many pictures and slides and recount so many tales. Most of this has to be experienced. Most of this has to be something, these are pants you got to try on before you buy. There will be work, there will be effort, and you will continue to suffer until you are no longer suffering. And that's a point you will get to. And where suicide is lying to you, saying that will alleviate your suffering. It will end your suffering, but it will not alleviate your suffering. You will get no relief from the suicide. So it is lying to you when it says that. But it will end it, but dully, brutally, and ineffectively. We have so many better ways of getting around whatever situation you're in right now. And so if you're in a domestic abuse situation, there are so many clever ways to signal people, especially with the internet these days. Send some crazy coded messages to people. Send anonymous emails. Do whatever the hell you gotta do to get out of that situation. If you think, I can't do this anymore. One more day of this and there's a bullet in my fucking head. Then get out. And I don't have money. I don't have this. I don't have that. Yeah, you're gonna get excuses. You're gonna get all the things that are designed to help you save calories that you just stored. But you have to go, yeah, I know, but this is kind of more important, and get the fuck out of Dodge. Because is it really so bad? It's my phone there. Is it really so bad that you have to borrow some money? Or is it better that you just die? Borrow the fucking money. This is a no-brainer. But, unfortunately, that's the suicide talking. When it gets in there, you could just do this. And that's the sort of sick, soothing part of it, too. Where it's sometimes depressed folks will sort of glorify and maybe even pornography. Is that a word? I don't know. But, not necessarily get anything sort of sexual out of it, but sort of embrace it because of how soothing it is. Or just, there's a certain level of melancholy that kind of feels nice. It's like an opium feeling. It's really so difficult to explain, and it's sure shit not worth the adventure. But there are people who kind of indulge that and sort of live in that. And I'm sure you've met those people and seen those people, and they're always, I hate everybody and everything's. Because it sets them at a safe distance, and so it doesn't push them into the go kill yourself phase, but it separates them from the herd enough that they it's a weird sort of, again, these are all, it's so weird. It's so weird to be a human. Sorry kiddo, I don't know who rolled what die and how we ended up where we did, but it's fucking nuts to be what we are. And what we are is critters made up from parts from quite some time ago. And we never really got new operating systems. We've just been adding to the same old one for millions of years. And just sort of branching it off into different types and things, but never a new one. And so we have all the same old weird commands we had back then. And if you've got your mental health on top of it, your anxiety is the world is dangerous, your depression is I'm dangerous, your bipolar is a mix of both, which is odd. You kind of from one to the other. All these, different. They impact it differently. They announce it differently. They bring it on differently. There's so much about whatever your personal experience is that's going to make this that much more specific, I guess. That much more. I don't know. It's why I can't just tell you why. But I think if you start to get a basic kind of understanding of these 5 motivations, these 5 kind of levels, go take the time and read the rest of it outside of the context of wanting to kill yourself. Outside of that kind of context. Go get the audiobook, go watch some YouTube videos, but understand where these sort of triggers, these motivations, these yearnings, these very complex sets of signaling mechanisms, where they all come from. The better you understand that, the stronger you'll become. And this is a very true thing, because the better you understand what you're fighting, the smaller you realize it is. You'll realize that it's just a dumb thought that you can throw away. It's not anything like, so I had the thought about my hand on the saw. And I was like, what the kind of shook it off for a minute. I was like, all right, we're done with that one, idiot. Like, I talk to myself a little aggressively, and I talk to the different parts of myself a little aggressively, but I don't know, it's my thing. But I was like, we're done with that part. Nah, we're not doing it. And I didn't dwell on it anymore, where in some cases, you get a weird thought and it just sticks, or you stick with it because you're bored, because there's nothing else to do. And then you're down this spiral. And the embarrassing truth is it is not easy to get out of, but it is simple. I'll say that. Because these are very strong impulses at first, until they are dulled. And so you have to develop the ability to dull them. So, gang, I'll end it there, because I think somewhere there's a dead horse with a black eye. Nobody get that one? Okay. Take care of yourself. Take care of your people. Take care of the people around you. You know that. Duh. And we're kind of at like a halfway point, I'd guess. Today is the, 27th? I don't know. Maybe like a third of the way in. So, I think we're doing okay. I think people are sticking out. There's some knuckleheads that I'm still trying to figure out if I even want to bother talking about them. So, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But, for the regulars, if you stuck this through, and you have somebody in mind that you think could use this, send it to them. We could definitely use your help if you want to like or subscribe, or check out our poor website. It's run by me, and I have, you've seen a demonstration of some of my attention span this evening, and I've been wrangling it somewhat well, but it's not great. So deployedfromdetroit.com is a bit of a shitstorm. It's been like 4 different websites before, when I used to make t-shirts, and I used to do this, and I used to do that. I'm kind of a jack of all trades type. And so now it's a nonprofit. And we've been doing that for a year and some change now. Sorry for that. You don't want to hear that, do you? We're learning. So, oh yeah, regular folks, I was talking to you guys. We could use your help. If you have a favorite episode or a favorite chunk of an episode, share it. Share it with whomever. We've got eyes on content here and there, but we could definitely use more. I know we could use some polish, but I think for the most part, the ones that don't suck are pretty goddamn good. And that's couldn't ask for more, right? So please help us out with that. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Um, pass us on to your social media. I don't use Facebook anymore. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't do well with my mental health. I go down some pretty fucking bananas spirals on that thing pretty quick. So it's better that I stay off it. But if you can handle Facebook like an adult, please share our videos and all that stuff. You might have to say, hey, skip ahead to this time stamp because the idiots didn't turn their fucking microphone on again, which I'm thinking there's 3 of them. There might be 4, but there's a few times where we have a few, we're learning. But we appreciate you guys hanging out and helping us get better as we do this. Last bit of house cleaning, if you're kind of interested, is the DFAC plan. Right now, I'm focusing on the plan part because I don't have financiers. So I can't, if I don't have the money, I can't build the place yet. But right now, we are closing in on finalizing a plan, and then hopefully I'd like to see before the close of the summer us generating meals for the community. And so that's something we're working on. If you're a veteran who did food service, if you cooked with me, come on down. I know you. I love you. If you're interested in this mission, we're gonna do a sort of separate brief once we have our first sort of good draft ready to kind of discuss, and that'll be like a dedicated thing. But if you're one of the hangers-on and you've got nothing to do in the quarantine time, we could definitely use your help. This is getting bigger, and it's definitely better that I do less, if you know what I mean. Jellybean. So, all right, gang, we love you. Take care of yourself. If you want to send us an email, you can shoot us one at dfd.slm@deployedfromdetroit.com. I'm Steve. This has been the School of Leadership and Madness. Hopefully we helped. If not, hopefully we're funny. If not, why the fuck did you watch? Love ya!